I know he's getting preseason praise, but I still think Keldric Faulk is underrated.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. It's a bonus edition of the show. We're joined by Ben Taylor of the Auburn Network. He hosts Auburn Opelika this morning on News Talk WANI every single morning. I want to talk to Ben about a new Auburn rising star that may be a big name even after he leaves Auburn, which is exciting. But I want to talk about Keldric Faulk for a second, and then you can share your name, Ben, who might be underrated. But I know Keldric is popping up on all these preseason lists. Mm-hmm. I just think he's still too low. I still think Keldric Faulk is being overlooked. He's going to be one of the best players in all of college football at any position. And like people are saying he's good. I need to see more people willing to say he's great and he's elite, because I think that's the level that he's going to be this year.
I just don't think that they've gone and watched film. And I say that because of recency bias, because they've been doing these takeovers on the SEC network.
Yeah,
and
sure.
So I've been watching, even though it's kind of pained me to do so, a lot of the Auburn games from last year. And just the other night, the Auburn-Missouri game was on. As I was laid down and going to bed, I was like, you know what? Nothing else to watch. I'll just watch the Auburn-Missouri game.
Just turn it off with a few minutes left to go.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is and the good news is I fell asleep before the end actually happened, so I was good to go there.
I only saw the first three quarters. It was great. Yeah,
it was fantastic. So, but one thing I noticed is even during that game, there were a couple of times where he one-on-one was having to chase somebody down, and was able to do so for a tackle for a loss, whether it be a quarterback or maybe an running back that bounced it to the outside, and he just had one-on-one. And I'm sitting there going, we're not talking about him being as elite as he probably could be, because he's going to be better this year than what he was during the Missouri game that I just watched. And he still had a few like solos, as well as he was in on tackles and that kind of thing. So, I mean, he was a disruptor. Like there were a couple of times they legit ran away from him after that to try to avoid him. And I think we'll see more of that as far as 2025 is concerned.
Also think it's where I love that you brought up Missouri as a game where Keldric looked good, because I think I've talked about this when Auburn hosts Mizzou, halfway through the season or whatever. But I mean, you talk about a defensive end looking good in that game. Mimbu, Mizzou's tackle, went first round. He went 7th overall.
Yeah.
Second highest pick in Mizzou history. Then their other tackle went to my Patriots, Marcus Bryant, in like the 3rd or the 4th round. Pretty decent pick.
Yeah.
And if you're able as an underclassman, which he was last year, Keldric was last year as a sophomore, and you're able to look good in that situation, like what else can you ask for?
Against two pros,
right?
By the way, at least they are now. They weren't at the time, but still, to be looking at, especially, it's funny you mentioned him because he went with him going first round. I think, if I'm not mistaken, one of the TFLs was one-on-one against him where he got around him. I'm not mistaken,
odds are that would make sense. That would make sense. So.
And I know that that's one game, and that's recency bias and me just watching that. But it's funny that then I come on with you and you mention his name, and I'm like, yeah, he kind of stood out in that game to me, even though we're not probably talking about him as much as we probably should. I know he's being mentioned. You mentioned that at the beginning because everybody's like, okay, this is a guy that's going to be on your radar. I just think he has the opportunity, Zach, to be a dominant player on the defensive side of the football. And I think that that's going to be helped by possibly our secondary being able to stay with guys maybe a little bit longer, give him an extra half second, maybe an extra second to get to somebody. Not to mention just the run stopping ability. And he's just a freak of nature, in my opinion. The way he's built, how big he is, how tall he is, but yet he moves like somebody that is much smaller with how quick he can be from side to side.
Yeah, I had 3 pressures in that game, quarterback hit and 2 quarterback hurries in that game. So,
Yep.
um, he was effective. He was effective, and was effective against, teams that are kind of known for having good offensive linemen. With Mizzou last year, where there were 2 guys getting drafted on the outside, and then had 4 hurries or 4 total pressures against Georgia, 6 against Cal, which is amazing to think about, how we lost that game. 7 pressures against Texas A&M, 6 against Vanderbilt. That one's infuriating to think about as well. So in these big games that Auburn was so close in, I know they won A&M, but all these games that they were so close in, Keldric did his part. And to me, I think there's going to be another step made. So I think he's a little underrated. Give me a name. Who do you think? Give me one name or more. I don't care.
Well,
who you might say, hey, this guy is still a little underrated as far as like public perception, maybe.
we talk about number one, I always love to go with an offensive lineman just because I think that they're always, underrated altogether. Just because if they do their job and they're quiet, then we get talked about until he gets draft time. So
you could say Connor Liu and do the exact same conversation we just had about Keldric.
Exactly. So I'm
Did I
not
take your name. Is that it?
I'm not going to go with an offensive lineman. I'm going to go with even better, because he's going to play the slot a lot. It's going to be Malcolm Simmons. And the reason being is because I think let's just call this the pod of 2 super freaks. Because I also think that he is a super freak as far as getting the ball in his hands and saying, hey, go get some and just see what happens. And I think that that's doable. I also think he probably learned a lot from last year. And I think he'll be a little bit better as far as hands, as far as knowing what to do is hitting certain holes, or at least kind of getting around either linebackers or defensive end. I love it if a defensive end like drops back and tries to cover him, because it just ain't never going to happen, in my opinion, because he's already backing up, and I think Simmons is already by at that point. So plus he can,
if that's part of the scheme, that's a bad week for the DC for sure.
And I think he's a guy that he's big enough. He can get some yards after contact once he gets hit. So, his speed is one thing, his shiftiness is one thing, but just the fact that not a lot of slot guys that can take a lick and keep going. And if they're going to use him in that role, whether it be a slot or an inside receiver, for him to be able to bounce off of somebody and keep his feet moving, I think that's going to, that extra 3, 4, 5, or break out and hit it to the outside, 20 yards is going to be a huge difference.
Yeah, no, I love Malcolm being underrated. I agree with you. I mean, on all these preseason lists and accolades, and you hear all the praise about Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton Jr., rightfully so. They're elite.
Yep.
But then, like, when people want to do kind of a deep cut and select, a dark horse or a guy who's like, truly flying under the radar, they'll go to Horatio Fields or Perry Thompson, which both of those guys' names are worthy of being discussed 100%.
Mm-hmm.
But I think of those 5 guys, I hear Malcolm's name the least. And I think Malcolm's clearly the third guy in this offense, or in this passing attack rather. So I love that selection by you.
He has the ability with the way he plays to kind of be I call it a hidden tight end, because of him being able to take that lick. And again, watching those SEC takeovers, which, by the way, if you guys haven't had an opportunity, there's some games you probably don't want to watch, or you want to fall asleep before the end of the Missouri game like I did, which is probably a good idea. But it was amazing to me to see him on some of those little dump off passes, or maybe being a third option, or maybe even he was the first option, but they just went to him. And sometimes our lineman couldn't get out there, so he had to literally beat that first guy by himself. And I like the fact that he was able to do that. And especially if you get him in motion. Now, I think some things need to be cleaned up. There are a couple of games that I've seen that he's trying to run with it before he actually has it in his hands. I'd like to see that fixed, so his head didn't get turned. And he's not looking for the lick. I think he's just that much of a playmaker that he knows he can get around somebody or by somebody. So he's looking 10 and 15 yards down the field before he gets there. And if he cleans that up and gets the ball and gets squared up on somebody, I think he gets around them and he's able to pick up those extra yards. So I'm with you. They're always going to look at those fancy wideouts. They do that in the pros. They do that in college. They do that in high school. But it's guys like that can pick up 8, 9, 10 yards, and then every once in a while break one.
No,
you're
you're
like,
right.
we're not
You're
talking
right.
about that guy enough.
Yeah, Auburn doesn't have an elite duo; they have an elite trio, and I think that's because of Malcolm Simmons for sure. Let's pivot away from football. Auburn seems to have a rising star, and I can't wait to see more of them. Next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Can you imagine Ben Taylor buying a ticket anywhere other than with our friends at Game Time?
Game Time, I love it.
You love Game Time. I love Game Time because you know that the ticket buying process doesn't need to be stressful. You're doing something fun. You're going to an event that is going to be exciting. The whole process should be fun and easy. And Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You can see the view from your seat. They can you can include, all in pricing. They've got it all over at Game Time. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Ben Taylor, you're a big golf guy. Jackson Koivun, the Auburn golfer, and I almost wanted to say former Auburn golfer because you're seeing him on all these PGA events, but no, he's coming back to Auburn for his senior year, which is so cool. But he's holding his own as an amateur in all these PGA events. The John Deere, what's the name of it? John Deere Classic? John Deere Classic,
even.
Yeah, whatever it was last week. He tied for 11, but shot 15 under, held his own. I think he was only like 3 or 4 strokes back when he took the course on Sunday. Like he was in it and he held his own. I mean, just the fact that this guy is so young and he's able to hold his own with literally the best in the world, and he seems comfortable doing it. I mean, I think this guy has that it factor that you want on the golf course.
There is no doubt. He is definitely one of those players that in golf is like any other sport, whereas a lot of it is what your peers think of you. And when you hear pros bragging about him, saying, hey, the potential's there, he's going to be out here and he's going to be giving us trouble in a couple of years, which, by the way, he's already got his tour card. Those of you that don't pay a lot of attention to golf, is he's got the new point system that allows collegiate players to get their card. Kid from Florida State's already got his. Jackson Koivun's already got his. Koivun has already said you can defer that card to later. He has done that because he wants to come back for his junior year at Auburn, which, by the way, another name not talked about, Brendan Valdez, was also in the field. He did not make the cut in the John Deere Classic. You got 2 guys playing in pro events that are going to be on a collegiate golf team next year. That's pretty daggum impressive. So basically, Auburn's going to have 2 pro golfers on their team playing in the 2025-2026 season going into next year, and undoubtedly are probably picked. They're already number 1, but probably picked to win the national championship. But Koivun has a lot to do with it. Dude, he's so tiny. Like, to see a guy hit the ball that far,
he can hit it, man. Great. Yeah, for sure, for sure. And
he's so little.
This last week it was so fun though. I think it was Saturday. It was either Friday or Saturday. He was like in the featured group, so you actually could watch him. Like, it was cool. Normally they just do like a quick segment like they do on all the amateurs, and it's like, here's this guy or whatever. But it's so fun to see him get this attention and then take advantage of it. Yeah. So the tour card thing. So now that he has that just means he could go pro at any time. Is that what that means?
He has 2 years to redeem it, which he's done that. He said that he's going to use it. And so, but yeah, he literally can show all of his buddies. I mean, talk about a flex when you go into an event and you're playing against another SEC team. It's like, hey, do you guys have one of these? Like, I got one. Do you have one?
Oh, is it a literal card?
Yeah, it's legit. That's awesome. Like, it's a card they give you it's like a brass card that's nailed to, or riveted to like a leather back. So it's about the size of a wallet. You can carry it around with you and you can show it to people and you be like, hey, check my card out.
That's awesome.
And so to show that, but you mentioned Sunday, if you watch the early coverage on Golf Channel, they legit opened the coverage talking about Auburn and Jackson Koivun and he was the first golfer they showed on the final round to open his round on the first hole. So the PGA Tour knows that he's the future because they're already showing him when they get the chance.
Yeah, that's pretty telling.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty powerful stuff. How does NIL impact this? I mean, is he able to get any winnings from?
No, and I don't think
why can't, is that because it's performance based and so it can't be that form of NIL?
I'm guessing I'd love to sit down with Kleiner, the head coach, and ask him, say, hey, I really thought this would change the way amateurs played in pro events because
like Suni Lee was able to get money from like what's that show she did, Dancing with the Stars or whatever.
Dancing with the Stars. I think if
that's a competition, it's not sports competition, but
I think it's because the small writing on the wall, and this is me just guessing. So anybody that takes us to the bank, don't. But Suni, she had that partnership with ABC, so ABC paid her. And I think if Jackson would have had an NIL deal with the John Deere could have paid him. But with the money coming from the PGA Tour, he's not endorsed by the PGA Tour, so that's why he can't get the NIL money.
I mean, that's dumb, right?
That is stupid, in my opinion.
Just making sure I'm not off base on that. Like that feels
that's totally dumb.
Me. Okay, got it.
So I guess
he's able to have like apparel sponsorships and all that.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's truly what NIL at its core is, right?
It still was very cool to see him wearing all his Auburn gear all weekend long, the entire time he was.
That's awesome.
Because he has the chance. Because when the
that's potential program changing stuff.
Oh, there's no doubt. And to have, man, I really wish Valdez would have made the cut. To have two of them in the field where, you got other teams don't have any. And so it's pretty impressive stuff that he's going to be playing in more. I mean, he's qualified. He's going to be playing in some opens and some invites. And so I'm excited to see what he can do, especially with the confidence that he probably gained with the John Deere this past weekend. If he's able to translate that into something else against. And those guys are very welcoming whenever he plays that well. He talked about in one of the previous terms he played in, Justin Thomas, who, by the way, is a Bammer, but still invited him to play in a practice round with him and kind of gave him some do's and don'ts. These are some things you might want to do, not do. So he's getting this experience he's getting is more than just golf. It's life advice from these guys of how to make his career look well. And they've all said the same thing too. Hey, very smart to come back and play at Auburn another year, try to get you a national championship because you got your card, man. You come out here whenever you want. Like you can be a pro when you want to. So
and he's so young. It's not like he's running out of time or anything. So.
Yeah, exactly. Fun to watch. I think people will see that name, but it is Koivun. There have been people that have like DM me and asked, how do you say his name? Like Koivun.
Yeah. Like Jackson Koivun.
Stud. He is.
Stud. Yeah.
He is. And and as I said, I don't want to discount Valdez and some of the others. He may not be the only one. You see some names at the top of the leaderboard in the next couple of years on the PGA Tour.
That's so fun. Ben Taylor, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
AUnetwork.com is how you find me, as well as click on that WANI logo. We do sports each and every morning just after 7, Monday through Friday. We would love to have you. You can stream on that Radio Alabama app.
Yes, please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.